You're listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. This is the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who understand that exponential business growth isn't achieved through traditional business tactics alone, but through personal development, the ultimate leverage point to scale businesses beyond conventional limits. Hosted by Erica Ferenzi, featuring lessons from the Practical, Profitable Mindset program, created by RJon Robins, Alejandra Leibovich, Erica, and Oscar Ferenzi. And here's your host, Erica Ferenzi.
Welcome. This week's lesson will challenge the belief that most entrepreneurs don't even realize that they have, and that is the fear of profit. Yes, you heard me right. Fear of profit, not fear of failure, not fear of hard work, not fear of not being enough, but fear of being profitable. The first major teaching that we will explore today is that profit will require your willingness to get uncomfortable. We often say that we want more profit, but profit will demand actions that will make people feel uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable is unpleasant. So we avoid it, we justify it, we avoid discomfort, and when we avoid discomfort, we avoid profit. The second key teaching today is going to be to understand what fear actually does to you biologically. When fear activates, your stress hormones will rise, your heart rate will increase, and the reasoning part of your brain will become way less effective. In other words, when we are afraid, we are not thinking clearly. We rationalize, we justify, we tell ourselves stories that make retreat feel reasonable. But often those stories are just fear trying to protect us from discomfort, not from danger. The third concept on this week's episode is that all voluntary exchanges are profitable in the moment when they happen. Yes, you heard me right. Even when you're undercharging, or if you're delaying your billing, or if you're working for free. In those moments, you're still making a profit, just not necessarily a rational one or a financial one. You might be protecting your ego, seeking approval, trying to avoid rejection. What you're really doing, what we all do, is choose emotional comfort over financial growth. Our episode features lessons from 8-figure serial entrepreneur RJon Robins. He is a co-founder of How to Manage Enterprises, one of the largest companies for managing small law firms in the country. This week's lesson will invite you to examine the evidence of your own behavior. Where is that you might be choosing short-term emotional comfort instead of long-term financial gain? Because the truth is simple. If we want real profit, we must learn to move forward even when fear is present. So join RJon Robins on this week's episode that can be life-changing for you.
All right. So let's talk about fear. The definition of fear. Fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous and likely to cause pain. Something is a threat. Fear is an unpleasant emotion. This is why people avoid fear, because it's unpleasant. It's an unpleasant emotion. Okay, fight or flight. By the way, it's an unpleasant emotion, which is why most people avoid it, which is why most people don't embrace it, which is why most people don't go after it, which is why most people don't want to bring things to your attention that will be unpleasant for their own fear that your fear will cause you to push them away or run away from them or punish them for bringing you information that causes you to have an unpleasant feeling. Because most entrepreneurially immature people won't deal with unpleasant emotions, which is why they just end up trapped in this cycle of mediocrity their whole life. All right, fight or flight. The instinctive psychological response to a threatening situation. Fight or flight is a psychological response to a threatening situation. Now, It is a threatening situation to go into a burning building. It is a threatening situation to go into a theater of war. It is a threatening situation to stand down an armed gunman. It is a threatening. Think about all of the things that we consider to be heroic in this world. They all involve doing something that runs counter to what is instinctive. Well, fighters, police officers, soldiers, people who march in civil rights protests against, people who are harassing them. All of these people are doing something that is instinctively counterintuitive. The instinctive feelings to run away. And what causes a person to go against that is training and commitment and focus on a higher purpose. That's what helps us go against what is instinctive. It is instinctive to run away or to fight. The instinctive psychological response to a threatening situation which readies a person to either resist forcibly or to run away. The fight or flight response is an automatic psychological reaction to an event that is perceived as stressful or frightening. The perception of threat activates the sympathetic nervous system and triggers an acute stress response that prepares the body for fight or flee. And then your subconscious starts feeling your blood pressure go up. It feels your heartbeat go up. It feels your body reacting to a stressful situation. And then your subconscious takes the body's reaction as proof that we are in physical mortal danger. And your subconscious starts conjuring up stories and reasons and excuses and explanations to get you out of danger. And if you're just going by what you feel, and if you're just going by what is instinctive, and if you're just going by what comes natural, you're always going to run away from fear. Unfortunately, you're always going to run away from profit too, because profit requires you to do things that are uncomfortable. Profit requires you to do things that are uncomfortable. You cannot make a profit without being at least a little bit uncomfortable. It is not possible to make a profit while staying comfortable. So if you say to me, well, I don't want to do that because I'm uncomfortable. Well, so is everyone else who's ever done anything that made a profit. Everyone on the planet who has ever done anything that made a profit in business, we all had to do things that were uncomfortable. We all had to overcome our sympathetic nervous system response to run away. You're not different than us. We're not different than you. You've got to get past this. All right. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are released. Your blood pressure and your heart rate increases. You start breathing faster. Even your blood flow changes. Blood actually flows away from your heart into your limbs, making it easier for you to run. Literally, blood flows out of your brain and into your limbs when you are afraid. Your brain stops getting oxygen. Your brain literally stops working efficiently when you are afraid. Okay. Let's talk about some of the 4 effects of fear on the body. Fear can make you foggy. Some parts of your brain are revving up and others are shutting down. The amygdala senses fear. The cerebral cortex, which is the part of your brain that uses reason and judgment, it becomes impaired. So now it's difficult to make good decisions or think clearly. As a result, you do things that later on you're like, what was I thinking? and you're not able to really think your way through rationally through a situation. Instead of thinking things through rationally, your brain takes shortcuts and begins to rationalize whatever stories, reasons, excuses it can grab onto that justify the movement away from the discomfort and the fear. 2, fear can actually become a form of pleasure. Haunted houses, roller coasters, scary movies, watching the news obsessively. The term is excitation transfer process. And this is where your body and your brain and your body actually remain in an aroused, excited state, even when the fear is over. Your brain literally produces dopamine in response to fear, which of course, dopamine is a pleasure hormone. Next, fear is not phobia. A fear is when you're slightly uneasy. A fear is when you're uncomfortable and, maybe you do it anyway. Fears are common reactions, but a fear becomes a phobia when it begins interfering with your ability to function. When fear begins to interfere with your ability to function, to maintain a quality of life, that's when fear has become a phobia. When you start taking extreme measures to avoid something to the point where it interferes with your life, that's when you know that fear has actually become a phobia. Now, I'm not suggesting that you're phobic of profit. I think most of us have some fear of profit. Just understand that fear is your body's way of protecting you. Fear isn't necessarily always something to overcome, right? I'm fearful of getting into an accident and dying, and consequently, I drive more carefully. I'm fearful of going out of business and losing my home, and consequently, I pay attention to my numbers, and I'm proactive about looking for problems before they blow up in my face, and I try to make better decisions. Fear can be harnessed to become a very, very, very profitable tool for you. I'm not suggesting that you should eliminate fear. I'm saying you need to learn how to use fear profitably. And that's what we're going to be talking about. All right. Last and not least is the word evidence. Evidence, we're all lawyers. We should know what evidence means. But just to remind you, and for those of you who are here who are not lawyers, evidence is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or a proposition is true or valid. So it's all of the facts and circumstances to indicate whether a proposition is true or valid. Now, the problem is lots of decisions are being made in your business, in my business too, in our businesses, with no evidence because of fear. All right. So the exercise for today is, and just make a list. If an objective third party was following you around and showing, like, let's suppose you were in a lawsuit and you're the defendant in a lawsuit, and the plaintiff were to hire a private investigator to follow you around for the whole day today, and then they're going to present the evidence to the jury and say, here is evidence that you are afraid of profit. What evidence would they be able to show that supports the proposition that you are actually afraid of profit, afraid of financial profit, afraid of personal profit, and or afraid of professional profit? That's the exercise. What evidence can you find that you are afraid of profit? And if you don't do this exercise, that's exhibit A in the fact that you're afraid of profit. Exhibit A is if you don't do the exercise. All right. Now we've got a little bit of time for Q&A.
So I'm having a hard time with these two premises, if I'm understanding them correctly. One, that all voluntary exchange is profitable, but also that we have fear of profit.
All voluntary exchanges are profitable.
Yes. Is that correct?
Right.
Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. All
Okay.
right. So can you describe an exchange that you would enter into voluntarily, but for you making a profit in the exchange?
If I provide my legal services for money?
You're making a profitable exchange.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm asking for, you said that you are having a problem with the
Oh.
premise that all voluntary
Okay.
exchanges are profitable. And I'm asking you to think of, or just make up, an example of a voluntary exchange that isn't profitable to both parties to the exchange. Absent fraud negates the voluntary aspect of the exchange. Trickery negates the voluntary nature of the exchange. Force, that's obviously not a voluntary exchange. And I also am excluding children and people who are not mentally competent.
Okay. So you were tricked into an exchange, but then after you learned that there was trickery, you continue with
That's
that's not it.
the question is, at the time of the exchange, there's a profit made at the time of the exchange. How it turns out later is how it turns out later. We have to evaluate the exchange at the time of the exchange.
I mean, it's not that premise by itself that I'm having issue with. It's one that where if we are fearful of something, then it could affect our actions so that we do something that is actually not profitable. So, because I feel like we're saying that on the one hand, we are afraid
Even
of
that
profit,
is
but then
profitable.
exchange.
Even that is profitable.
Okay.
Let me give a few examples because I've had this conversation with like thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Sure.
Okay. Lottery tickets. People love to use the lottery ticket as an example. I pay $1 to get a lottery ticket, and the lottery ticket turns out to be a loser, and I throw it in the garbage. Did you make a profit when you bought the lottery ticket? Yes or no?
Yes.
Why?
Because you went in like with the hope that you could win the lottery.
Or
You felt good about
you just
buying the
enjoyed the
ticket.
thrill.
Right. Okay.
I have this $1 and I say to myself, I'd rather have the chance of winning the lottery than this $1. And so I'll voluntarily exchange the $1 for the chance, remote as it may be, of winning the lottery. I've made a voluntary exchange. I made a profit. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have the thrill because the lottery winner won't be announced till tomorrow or next week or whatever. And every day I'll be able to have this fantasy and daydream and have the thrill of imagining myself the lottery winner. And that's worth exchanging $1 for. You follow?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Gambling. People use that example all the time. Gambling is profitable for the gambler for the same reason. They enjoy the thrill. They value the opportunity, whatever it is, just the entertainment value. They're making a profit. Even if they end up losing, they made a profit at the time they did the exchange. They made a profit. Yes?
Okay. Yeah.
Entering into a bet. Maybe we bet on a football game and I lose the bet and you take, $100,000 and I lost $100,000 because I bet on the wrong team.
Mhm.
At the time of the bet, we made an exchange, right? We exchanged the promise to pay each other based on the outcome of a game. And maybe I made a profit because the chance of winning was worth the risk to me, or the thrill was worth the risk to me.
Right.
Remember, you can't impose your values on the other person. You have to find out what their values are. The parent who allows themselves to suffer and starve so that their child can have a better life. They value that child's future better life. Every time there is a voluntary exchange, there is a profit. You wouldn't make a voluntary exchange if you didn't think you were going to get more out of it than you were giving up.
So that I understand, but so I thought of an example that maybe can help clarify. So in the process of maybe selling my legal services or just anyone, is that we tend to undercharge. Now that's not profitable, but out of fear of losing the client.
That's not true. That's not true. Not true at all. It is profitable. You value your ego more than you value the money.
Ego being exactly like not losing the client.
Ego meaning you should charge $2, but instead you charge $1. You knowingly undercharge because you want to protect your ego from the person saying no.
Okay, I see. So
doing work for clients for free and not sending out bills. Sorry, everyone. You're still making a profit when you do work for free and you don't send out your bills. You're still making a profit because you are valuing them, the belief or the perception that they like you.
So then we're not running away from profit in those. So I'm still trying to reconcile. Then that we're not running away from profit? It's just what profit is at that moment. Is those two premises?
You're running away from rational profit.
Okay.
You're running away from the kind of profit you ought to be running towards. We're all afraid of profit. I didn't say you're afraid of all kinds of profit, but there's fear of profit going on in all of our businesses and in all of our lives.
So then part of this exercise, then we have to identify what profit is more rational before deciding what we're running away from.
Find evidence this week. Just take an inventory of wow, I did that because I was afraid of this kind of profit.
Okay.
So welcome back. As we wrap up this lesson on the fear of profit, there are 3 powerful truths that stand out. Number 1, every profit requires you to become uncomfortable. Every profitable action will require you stepping into something that will feel uncertain, exposed, or uncomfortable. Whether it is you pricing your services or your products properly, having difficult conversations, making bold decisions. What you want to do is to remember that your growth lives on the other side of your discomfort, on the other side of your fear. If you ever want to wait to feel comfortable or feel ready, you might be waiting forever. So go take that action. It doesn't matter if it feels uncomfortable at the beginning. Second, fear will change how you think. When fear activates, our body prepares to run or fight. Our blood flow shifts. Stress hormones rise. And our ability to reason becomes impaired. That means that many logical explanations we give ourselves for why we're playing small or we are not taking action may not be logic at all. They may be fear-driven rationalizations. Number 3, we are always making some kind of profit. Every voluntary exchange produces value in the moment when it occurs. The real question is, what kind of profit are you choosing? Are you choosing emotional safety over financial growth? Are you choosing approval over pricing integrity? You might be choosing comfort over expansion. What are you really choosing? The exercise from this week's lesson will push you to gather some evidence, real evidence of what your real drivers are. Where is that fear might be influencing your decisions? Not to shame yourself, but to become aware, because that awareness is the first step towards change. This is the thing. When you feel fear and you're not aware, your next action is going to be a subconscious way of protecting your fear. But when you become aware that is your fear speaking to you, then you have a choice and you can decide to act differently. So when we learn to use fear strategically, instead of being controlled by fear, we position ourselves for real, measurable, and practical profit. And that is exactly what the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast is for. Here is to your exponential growth. Stay healthy, stay hungry, and stay focused. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. We encourage you to take action on it today. Share what you've learned with another entrepreneur. Sign up for our newsletter to get bonus content you won't get anywhere else at exponentialentrepreneur.com and subscribe to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast to receive the next episode. Until next time, keep breaking through limiting beliefs and growing exponentially.